Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What's a story you don't tell people because they wouldn't believe you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I don't tell this story because it's just a little too strange, like a glitch in the Matrix. I'm a skeptic by nature, by the way, and I do think it was a big coincidence, but it's just odd as hell. So, one day I'm at home and I get a phone call. On the other end is a young woman, and someone called her from this number and said they had her cat. Well, I told her she must have the wrong number because I certainly didn't call her and I don't have anyone's cat. So that was it, and she hung up. About 10 minutes later, I go to get my mail. I'm on the first floor, leaving my apartment door open, and as soon as I open the door to the vestibule where the mailboxes are, in sprints a black and white cat into my apartment. I go back into my apartment and there's this cat sitting, perching on the arm of my couch, staring at me. I'm kind of surprised at this point. I just told someone I didn't have any random cats in my apartment, and suddenly there's one on my couch. Anyway, so I notice the cat has a tag on its collar. Hi, my name is Skittles, not real name. If I'm lost, call this number. So I call the number. It's the young woman who just called me 10 minutes ago. This is going to sound weird, I said, but now I have your cat. Well, she came over, looked at me very suspiciously, and thanked me and left. I have no explanation for this. I accept it as a coincidence, but it's a hell of a coincidence. I know you guys just saw my face, so I apologize for coming in this early, but if the story was exactly as it happened, it would be absolutely wild. And if you're still a skeptic after that, I don't know what would convince you. Wild. When I was 11 years old, I always used to take a shortcut through the local graveyard at night when coming back from the arcade. One night there was a storm and the graveyard was muddy. I fell off my bike and hit my elbow and head, so I took cover under a grave house to check if I was bleeding or something else. It was already dark, but I could see 3 men carrying a bag and dumping it in an opened hole that they proceeded to cover it. I saw everything. When they left, I went to the guard's place and told him what I saw. He told me to calm down and gave me a cup of milk and told me to stay there while he went to check for himself. When he came back, he looked at me and didn't say a word. He called the police, but when they arrived, I heard him tell them I was on drugs and that I was lying. I freaked out, so I jumped out the window, over the fence, and ran home. They found a decapitated body 3 days later. When I was about 8, my mother's boyfriend took me to the batting cages. If I recall correctly, the machine shot about 5 to 10 baseballs and then you had to put more money in. I had already been batting for about half an hour, and my mom's boyfriend told me this is the last set. So I was extra focused. I started swinging away at my final set, and I shit you not, on my last ball, I swung and hit it back into the machine. I couldn't believe it. I still kinda don't believe it, so I don't really expect anyone else to, I guess, but it happened. TL, DR, hit the last ball back in the machine at the batting cages. I was a homeless drug addict living in the streets of San Francisco. I lived outside for like 2 years. I ate out of dumpsters and injected drugs outside. I'm married now. I have 3 kids. I just finished 2 years as the PTA treasurer, despite being a convicted felon. I tell some people my story. I don't bother with the majority. They wouldn't believe it. When I was about 9 or 10, my grandparents and I were living in a somewhat large town in Pennsylvania. I would ride my bike around the block we lived on and never had many problems until one day it was close to sunset and I was just about to turn the last corner that looped back to the road our house was on. A large group of people were outside of their house and they were all laughing loudly and goofing off, I assume. They decided to sort of form a wall across the sidewalk in front of me, while more of them kind of boxed me in from behind. One of them, a guy, stepped forward and grabbed my handlebars, got right in my face and started yelling at me while his friends laughed and carried on. He pushed me off the bike onto the ground and started laughing maniacally. He kind of pushed the bike hard. It landed on me and he started moving towards me again. So I jumped up, pulled my bike with me kind of into the bush on the side to get away, got on it and pedaled like hell to get home. My grandma was pretty pissed I was banged up, but thought it was my fault for being a stupid kid. About 2 weeks later, I found a newspaper on the kitchen table with that guy's face on the front cover. He was arrested for killing an old lady just down the road from our house. My grandma never believed me, but I could never forget this guy's face. When I lived in China, people often asked me what was different about life in the US. I told them in the US we don't keep small hot water heaters in our bathrooms. We have a large hot water heater in our basements that send hot water to every faucet in the house. I got called a liar enough times that I finally stopped bringing it up. In the US, I was once asked the same question, and I told them that in China, they have small wall-mounted hot water heaters in their bathrooms for showers. Again, I got called a liar. There is just no pleasing some people. Amen. Okay, so I don't like to tell this story because it's absurdly unbelievable. Like, I myself don't even believe it, but my friend swears by it. A couple of years ago at Bonnaroo, just after the Alt J show got out, me and my friend are coming down off some decent acid, and I decide that I could really effing go for a Wonder Waffle. So I'm in line waiting, and I finally get my delicious ice cream treat. When I turned around, and an older gentleman says to me, "You know, there's only one place in the world you're gonna find a treat like that." I, being ever the quick-witted young lad I am, only responded with, "Good, 'cause I'm effing starving," which didn't even make sense, and turned around to put chocolate and shit on my waffle. When I turn around, the gentleman is gone, and my friend has this dumb look on his face, and while we're walking away from the Wonder Waffle stand, he says to me, "Dude, you know who that was, right?" And I say something along the lines of, I don't know, some old dude. And he looks at me with the dumbest smile ever. He says, "Dude, that was effing Paul McCartney." And I'm just standing there with this dumbfounded look on my face that says there was no way in hell that was Paul McCartney. So that's my potential encounter with Paul McCartney, and I totally understand if you don't believe me. I don't even believe it. TL, DR, may have accidentally bro-dozed Sir Paul McCartney. Look, some advice. If your friend told you this happened, it happened. Even if it didn't happen, own that story, because it's a good one. I really enjoyed it. Thanks. I was driving after the '04 Super Bowl. Stormy night, no alcohol or anything. Highway had one lane plowed, so I'm driving along. About a mile distance between me and cars from me in both directions. It's snowing, but I can see well. My car was made for this shit. 4x4 big enough tires, a little top heavy. So, as I'm going down the road, my steering wheel all of a sudden goes crazy. Turning left, then right, then left, and back a few times. Caught me off guard for sure, but I couldn't stop it. The funny thing was, I was still going straight. Nothing wrong. White knuckles, adrenaline pumping, trying to comprehend what just happened. It happened again before I could calm down. I'm holding the wheel as hard as I possibly can. It goes left regardless of my efforts. It slams over to the right, and my rear wheels follow suit. At this moment, my steering wheel unlocks, time slows down, and my experience kicks in. Start fixing it, but my car picked up speed in the other direction and did a 300-degree spin, so my rear is heading to the median. As nothing I could do to fix the situation, it was clear that I was heading for some doom, but a calmness overtook me. I was going fast enough to flip my car, and if you've been in a car crash, you know the feeling of coming to a halt in an instant. Bang, my car went, stalled out from the crash. I'm able to move, look back, don't see damage, try to start my car, it starts. Looking down the road, I see some cars coming, figures to get to the side of the rest stop for half a mile. My car is running fine, and I make it to the rest stop. I pull into the first parking spot and run around the car since I'm no longer in danger. Not a scratch on her, no dent, nothing. I've tried to work out what happened with my steering and how I walked away with not a scratch on my car, but I have no logical answer. I was put into peril and taken out by some force, not of my own. When I was 8, I loved to climb into trees. One day it was very hot and I was playing outside in Speedos. Close to our house was a tree I just loved to climb. The branches were just perfect. This tree was surrounded by stinging nettle. You probably can guess it already. I did climb the tree that day with only my swimming trousers on. A branch broke and I fell right into the nettles. It hurt a lot and I jumped on my bike, net pedaled from head to toe, and in a blind panic I drove the direction home. This was on a small path going downhill. I lost control over my bike, hit a pole with my head and fainted. My neighbor's friend found me and she called my parents, who called 911. I was taken to hospital with a severe concussion and nettle poisoning in my Speedo. My brother was chilling in his room in the basement last summer, playing Xbox with his headphones on. He thought he heard a weird noise upstairs, but just thought it was our older brother getting home since he generally sounds like a herd of elephants. He took his headphones off and heard the front door slamming. He decided to go upstairs to grab a snack and see who else was home now. He ran up the stairs and noticed the air was a little hazy. He opened the door to the garage to check for vehicles indicating that people were home, and flames came shooting out at him. Our house was on fire. Turns out the noises upstairs were from a neighbor who saw the fire and ran into the house. I had left the front door unlocked when I left 2 hours previously. The neighbor had grabbed our dog and yelled to see if anyone else was home, then ran out. The fire started in the garage and spread to the roof and attic. It melted our smoke detectors from above, so the alarms never went off. When my brother realized the house was on fire, he ran back downstairs because he thought I was still home. When he saw that I wasn't in my bedroom, he ran back upstairs, looked for our dog, then finally saw the neighbor holding her outside. He took 5 steps outside, saw that our mom's vehicle's in the driveway, very close to the fire, and thought he should grab her keys to back it up. He turned around and there was fire entirely blocking the front door. Good thing, because if he tried to start it, it may have exploded with how hot it was. He called my parents after calling 911, and my mom laughed because she thought he was joking. He wasn't. Our house burnt down in the middle of the day, plus my mom's vehicle ended up lighting on fire and basically melted from the heat. The very next day, I received my acceptance letter for med school in the mail. I think I saw some kind of, spirit or demon or some kind of shadow being once. I was doing some training one afternoon about 6 years ago. I was in an office and there was an instructor telling us all about job safety, etc. I was zoning out, not really paying attention. It was broad daylight outside. The room I was in had about 6 monitors, and on those monitors it was displaying security camera footage, mostly the sidewalks and outside traffic. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught some kind of shadow on one of the monitors, but the shadow was moving along the sidewalk very fast and whatnot. It didn't look like a shadow on the ground. It looked like a ball of shadow just drifting along the sidewalk like a tumbleweed, very fast. I caught it just out of the corner of my eye and it went off screen. I started looking at all the other screens to see if it popped up, and sure enough, it did pop up on another screen, still traveling down the sidewalk. Then it crossed the street, and I could just barely see a car stop in front of it. The shadow ball lifted up off the ground, went over the car, and then back down onto the street on the other side of the car. And on the screen, I saw the car just sit there for a moment and then take off. The shadow went completely off screen and I never saw it again. Now, as with all the claims like this, it could have been anything, who the F knows, but it was very unsettling to me. The light would almost bend around it, wherever it would move, and it was translucent, and whatever it was, that car saw it too, and stopped. Somewhere out there, someone else saw that thing, and I'll never meet them and be able to ask if it was as weird looking as I thought it was. And truth be told, today is the first time I've ever told anyone that story. Honestly, I probably wouldn't believe me. It's believable, but at the time people didn't believe me. People would say that my town didn't have any wolves at all, but I was walking down my street in the middle of the night and a wolf is literally 5 feet away from me. I was walking one way and it was walking the other, but watched me the entire time. I'm so glad my house was close. Of course, now, 10 years later, people know there are wolves there. They kept telling me it was a dog. I know what a gray wolf looks like. My town has a lot of wildlife. I saw a huge moose running down the street, a deer with her baby, cougars, and plenty of bears. I like to go hiking. Back about 10 years ago, I went out into western New York with a friend and my then husband. We hiked through the woods for hours and were about to make camp before the sun started to go down. We came to a river, took off our packs, and suddenly I heard our friend make a gasping noise and freeze. Across the water, perhaps 20 yards away, was a creature staring at us. It was about 8 feet tall and absolutely massive in frame and musculature. We stared at it. It stared back. It felt like forever, but was probably just a minute or so. Then it turned and walked off into the woods. This broke the spell, and we all tossed our packs back on and ran off the way we had come. We never stopped to camp. We didn't stop until we got back to the truck around midnight. Our friend, who lives up there, said it was a Wendigo. I have no clue if it was a Sasquatch, a Wendigo, or just some enormous dude somehow effing with us, but I will never hike in Western New York again. I don't ever want to see that again. I know people would think I'm nuts, but there is no real acceptable explanation. My buddy put out one rap album and pretty much just shared it with his friends in college. He had a release party, but it was really him buying a keg and putting it at our pool of our apartment complex while he rapped over his beats. The guy can't rap, but he really can't sing, and one of his tracks is completely sung, and it's a bit cringeworthy. Fast forward to 2 years later, my friend is in town visiting a bunch of people. I'm at his friend's house one night, and we've got a group hanging out in the backyard. Eventually, it's time for me to get going, and my rapper friend says he'll walk me out the front of the house. 2 girls are walking up the front yard when we come around the house, and one screams and says, "Oh my God, it's rapper friend." I stand back shocked at what I'm seeing. The girl introduces herself, and her friend says, "Oh my God, can you sing cringeworthy song for me?" I still can't believe what's happening. Rapper friend says, "Well, I don't know the lyrics off the top of my head, but I'll sing it for you once I finish with my friend here." The girl was so excited, jumping for joy. She ran off to the backyard and I walked home. Later, I'd find out he did sing her the song, and when rapper friend told all our college friends what happened, they didn't believe him, until I stepped in and validated the story. Do any of you have any friends who put out like an independent song or record that wasn't good? I have one friend, well, acquaintance, anyway, it's bad. If this person is still reading this that wrote that, send the link, I'd love to hear it. I don't tell anyone about my past. My husband knows, some family and some former friends. That is it. I'm not very quiet, reserved, and a huge introvert. I will choose a night in at home alone with husband and child over anything else. However, I wasn't always this way. My early 20s, I was a stripper. I traveled around the country working at various clubs. I had a twin, and we'd go work features for a weekend before moving on. I dabbled in drugs, ecstasy, and cocaine, and quit cold turkey one day after an acquaintance who was out partying with us died after I left. I've been clean and sober since 2008. Nobody would believe me if I told them my past. They assume that I'm just a shy, boring person, and I am happy to let them see that. It would blow my in-laws' minds though.